But so just the pattern for the skirt, and then for the flared skirt, we're gonna tweak up our pattern. So the only thing I'm demonstrating today is how to do the slash and spread to open up your flare skirt. And then I'm gonna show you how to do the waistband. And then the waistband, you'll only need to do one to fit the flared skirt. If you have any questions about the pencil skirt as you're drafting, then do let me know. But for today's demonstration, I am not gonna do the pencil skirt, okay? All right, so for the flared skirt, if you look at the flat sketch, it does not have any darts, but it does have a hem, a bottom opening that is wider than the hip. So what we're gonna do is we're going to close up the darts and we're going to open up our sweep. Sweep, bottom open, all the same thing. And to do that, we're gonna trace our blocks. We will have a working pattern and a final pattern. So you will need to provide both. All of the notches, all of the punch holes. All right, so we have our center front here. We have our notch. Now we learned how to do the slash and spread to close up the darts for the bodice. We're gonna do the same thing for the skirt, and we need to add slash marks. So I am just continuing my dart leg or my dart point all the way down to the bottom, and that is going to be my slash mark. Do it for both of the darts. Okay, let me just fill this in.
But so if you were making the skirt fuller, you would add more of those slash marks?
For my flared skirt, I'm doing it more like a pencil style where it's not gonna be, not a pencil, sorry, oh my gosh, A-line, where it's not gonna have too much width at the bottom sweep. It's just gonna have enough to flare out. So cut it out completely. Now I'm gonna cut along my slash lines and one of the dart legs. Okay, now I'm gonna tape it down. And as I'm taping it down, I'm closing up the dart. Just tape my center front piece down first. Now my middle panel, I'm just gonna close up my dart leg. And that kind of naturally opens up the bottom for me. Now the side piece.
Sorry, Tan, I'm all up in your business.
And that opens up about like 1.5. And if you absolutely wanted it to be more flared, you will have more slash lines, or you can also just add a little bit off on the side seam. So I don't really like this curve too much. I think when I think of an A-line skirt, I want it to have like a flat, straight side seam. So I'm gonna kind of straighten this part out just a little bit, not too much. I ran out of material. But from the curviest point, which to me is about like 2 inches from the waistline on the half scale, I'm just gonna straighten out. So that's another like 1.5 inches for me. And then this length should match this length here. So here, from here to here is about like 8.5. 8.5 here. Now all that's left to do is connect my bottom hem using a French curve, the flatter side of the French curve. And that is your front flared skirt. So the seam allowance I indicated here to be just 1/2 inch. I know when we're working with half scale, you might think like, okay, so half of the standard amount would be like 1/4 inch, but we're gonna keep it as 1/2 inch here. Bottom hem is 1/4 inch double turn back. So in total, that'll be 1 inch, sorry, oh my gosh, 1/2 inch to include that fold line. So basically just like 1/2 inch all around. Center front will be cut on fold, so you don't need to add any seam allowance there. You know what, actually, before I do the seam allowance, I need to do something else. I'll show you that after, but I'm gonna pause on the front and I'm gonna do the back piece. So where's my back? The back is gonna be the same exact as the front. You do your working pattern, you spread, do your slash and spread. But there's something else that needs to be done on the pattern, and that's called balancing out your side seams. I'll show you guys how to do that when I'm done with the back piece. But have you guys ever noticed on a jacket or like a shirt or a skirt, sometimes the side seam kicks either forward or backwards? That's because your 2 pattern pieces are not balanced. So we have to do a little truing to make sure that both of the pieces are aligned with each other. Just one thing like this. So this is the working pattern.
So for the pencil skirt, it's just copy the mini block, but then add the seam allowance at the bottom, and then straighten out the allowance, or just basically add the seam on the side.
Seam allowance on the side.
Just one half.
1/2 inch, yes. Okay. I'm gonna speed through this. eyeball it, but probably no bigger than like 1.5 inches. And I'm straightening it from the curviest point because I want it to be nice and straight. And then make sure the length of it is the same. So it's about 8.25.
J. Crew used to have a really great pencil skirt, but they stopped making them.
Oh, J. Crew?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't shop at J. Crew.
For a pencil skirt, they were really great. They had the lining and everything too. It was like $40. It was great for a well-tailored skirt.
Okay. So now we have our back. In the back here. And I'm going to balance my side seams, and sometimes, not all the time, it might be nice and straight and you won't need to do anything. I'm cutting it without the seam allowance because I want to make sure that it's I have my side seam aligned first before I add seam allowance. So I'm gonna take my 2 pieces. So you will probably have lots of working patterns. I mainly just need the side seams.
And then add seam allowance on the back.
Yes, but I'm not adding seam allowance quite yet. I'm going
Oh,
to,
because you're gonna chew it.
yeah, true it or rebalance it. And the way you do that is you just lay it in front of each other. Make sure the center front is parallel with each other. Your waistline is not going to be super straight. Sometimes the back is a little bit higher than the front. That's okay. That's just to kind of accommodate the curves in the back. So you really don't need this to match up, but you need your center front to match up. So if you can kind of tell, it's slightly off by like 1/4 inch at the top. I'm not going to add to the waistline, instead I'm going to add at the bottom. So to do that, okay, so you line it up, make sure your front is parallel. Well, actually it doesn't look too bad when I line it up from the back side.
So your center front and center back need to line up, but your side seams don't necessarily?
The waistline does not need to line up. The center front needs to match up for sure. And sometimes you'll notice one is a little bit bigger than the other or wider than the other. So you basically have to just meet right in the middle so that the side seam is gonna have is gonna be aligned. It doesn't have to be the same width all the way down. It just needs to be parallel to each other. This is a little bit confusing. But the back skirt and the back pants will always be bigger than the front. But I don't know why my pattern has it where the front is bigger than the back. And I have a hunch it's because this was drafted based off of an old dress form. So it's not accurate, but the back should always be 1/2 inch bigger than the front. And when you're drafting it, sometimes it'll be a little bit offset at the hem.
The back should be 1/2 inch
Bigger than the front.
bigger than,
But this is a terrible example because it's pretty aligned.
so it's close.
It's too close and I can't really show you what I was gonna show you.
So it's not like a realistic representation of what a skirt pattern
Yes.
should be?
Yeah.
Okay.
But then the way you would like adjust it is if you have a piece that is too wide against one that is too small, you just redistribute it to that other piece. But the side seam will have to be parallel with each other. It doesn't have to be completely aligned with each other when you line it up in the center front. Does that make sense?
Where does it need to start being parallel, like at the hip?
All the way down, from the side seam all the way down to the hem. So it's slightly like, barely like an eighth of an inch more. And that's not big enough for me to make an adjustment. But if it was like a half of an inch bigger, then I would distribute a quarter of an inch to this piece here. But you want it to be parallel all the way down here.
And how would you distribute that? It's hard to
Yeah.
say without showing, right?
Okay, let me just pretend that the center back is,
Wider.
And this is what we'll be
Wider.
doing for.
you just have to measure it to see that it is completely aligned. And if it is, you won't have to do any adjustments. Yeah. So let's pretend that my center front is like this, okay?
All that work.
And that's okay. I can do another one. The center back is what I want to base off of it. So I'm just going to take my front and put it next to it. Make sure the front is aligned. Center front and center back is aligned. And there's a difference, a big gap here. So what I'm going to do is whatever that measurement is, for me it's 3/4 of an inch. Divide that by 2, and then I will add whatever that amount is, which is 3/8. Add it to this smaller piece and shave away that 3/8 from the bigger piece. That will meet right in the middle. So if it's 3/8, it's like right there.
Okay, you're just distributing the floors.
You're distributing it by evenly adding it to here. But for the bigger piece, I'm just gonna trim it off. Blend it all the way to where it kind of starts to taper together. And then for this piece, then I will add that 3/8 of an inch.
Can you cut this one off and put it over there?
You probably can. Yeah, it's gonna be a very small piece that you're gonna try to tape together, but you
It'd
can
be
totally do that.
probably more of a pain than.
You're gonna probably end up with a lot of tape. Okay, so now this is gone. I don't need this anymore. But now I'm going to add this back into here, which is 3/8,
And just
just
go
at the bottom.
parallel. Oh, just at the bottom. Yeah.
Yep, just at the bottom, and then taper it up here. And what you can also do then is just take this side, line it up,
And then trim it,
and just, yeah,
just match it.
line it up,
And that should be about plus a half inch.
and redraw based off of the other side seam. So I'm just tracing the side seam to make sure it's really, really aligned. So now this becomes my new side seam line. This process is called rebalancing it, rebalancing your patterns, mainly only used at side seams. You can do it for your bodice, but I think when you're like doing like a sash and spread or something that's going to manipulate like the width on both sides, this is where you can kind of align your seam allowances.
Okay.
So then from here, then you would probably tape it onto another piece of pattern paper, do your seam allowance all around. Bottom is going to have that double fold hem allowance. The side is going to have the 1/2 inch, and the top is going to have 1/2 inch.
So for the hem, it's at 1 inch and then a 1/2 inch?
I think the hem for the flare is actually a 1/4 inch double fold.
Okay.
That means it's going to be 1/2 total. So it'll just be half all around. Okay, that's that.
Awesome.
That is the end of